Okay, so I'll just stop the screen share. Okay, very good. So all streams are running?
Yeah.
Do you want to launch your camera or not? Because of course it's better if you do.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Do you want to launch your camera? Or do you have a camera that you can launch?
No, unfortunately I'm not allowed to have the camera here, so sorry for that.
And we just imagine, we saw you on the picture. Okay, then it's my greatest pleasure to welcome Emmanuel Brun. He is an expert in IoT system security with Airbus, and during the last 10 years, he acquired a strong technical background in cybersecurity and IoT by contributing to national and European programs. He had various positions within Airbus cybersecurity, from integrator to team leader of IoT and identity and access management engineering team. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon everybody. So let's just quickly introduce what is Airbus cybersecurity. So I'm working with Airbus cybersecurity, which is a subsidiary of the Airbus Defense and Space Division of the Airbus Group. We have activities which are mainly related to cybersecurity projects and products. And we have typically Security Operations Center in France, Germany, Spain, and UK. And we also have activities in the field of OT and industrial systems, and also in IoT. So today I will have a short talk about end-to-end security for IoT constrained devices. But before going deeper into the topic, I just would like to share with you two definitions. Indeed, most of the time we confuse IoT and IIoT, so I just wanted to give a short definition of it. So let's say that IoT is not just sensing for sensing. When you deploy IoT systems, it's in order to reach a more global goal. For example, in order to optimize your processes, in order to improve the quality of your data, etc. So therefore, when IoT is a full cyber physical ecosystem that is fully interconnected between sensors and actuators, in the objective of building continuous improvements, especially regarding decision making and action. The main difference with industrial IoT is that industrial IoT implies most of the time interconnection with the IoT systems, with the company processes, analytics, and systems. So it means that you have this interconnection between the shop floor, for example, in the industry, and your, let's say, IT legacy systems from the government point of view. So, what is the role of the IoT in cyber attacks? It could be used in three different ways. The first way is IoT as a target, as a target itself. The first example for this is the hack of an emergency sirens in Dallas. Indeed, it was in 2017, in the morning. Hackers succeeded to switch on all the emergency sirens of the city of Dallas, the United States. This really creates a fear because inhabitants were not ready for that, and it really have huge impacts by lots of people calling the emergency lines, etc. So this shows an example of attack on IoT system as a target itself. The second one is quite well known. It's the use of the IoT as a vector. Indeed, most of the time we say that the easiest way for attacking a system is to attack the weakest point. The example of the casino fish tank temperature sensor attack in 2017 also is a good one. Indeed, it was a casino in Las Vegas. Here there was a simple fish tank with temperature sensor in it that was connected to the Wi-Fi of the casino. But it was also connected to the cloud service of the sensor provider. And it means the cyber attacker used these fish tank temperature sensors in order to access the database of the casino itself. So this shows that IoT as the weakest point in the architecture, or at least the one that has a door to the external world, was used in order to attack the backend of the casino here. And the last way to use IoT for cyber attack is to use it as a weapon. The Mirai.net is a good example. In IoT, you see a lot of devices that are running similar software or firmware, and therefore we have similar security breach that can be used in order to corrupt with one script a lot of devices. Therefore, it was what was used through the Mirai.net in order to gain control over all those IoT and then use them in order to perform attacks, the denial of service attacks on other systems such as the DNS infrastructure. So what are the impacts of cyber attacks on IoT systems? We classify the impact on three main categories. The first one, the business impact. Indeed, if you attack even the smallest sensor in the factory, this could cause a breakdown and service on time, and resulting in a loss of reputation and also potentially quality deficiencies, reputational damages, etc. The second main category of attacks is the physical damages. As we explained just before, IoT is dealing with cyber physical systems. So it means that you have, with IT connection, the ability to really have physical impacts on the factory, for example, if we use the schema here. By taking the control on a robot, you can make physical damages into the factory and the production line. And then you can have equipment damages, but also you can have issue with human safety, particularly with the operator on the production line. The third main category is the damages to intangible assets. Here, you can have damages related to intellectual property, but also to data, and here we could come to privacy, really. And an interesting example here is, for example, when you think about temperature value, this doesn't seem very critical as it is. But now, if you think about it in the food industry, where you have very sensitive processes and very secret processes for food preparation, then this temperature data is very important, and you need to be able to protect it in terms of confidentiality and also in terms of authenticity. So, why do we need end-to-end security, and also in the field of constrained devices. By constrained devices, we mean small devices such as temperature sensors, environmental sensors, etc., that run on very small devices using very constrained networks. So, if we just analyze quickly the architecture of constrained IoT devices, we see that we have most of the time 5 main components into the chain. The first one on the left is the device itself with the IoT. Then you have the edge network, so the local network, potentially with local gateway, and then you have the network provider that will allow to connect the device and the edge network with the outside world. Then you have the IoT platform, which could allow to gather data from different edge networks. And finally, you have the application that will get the data, analyze it, and show graphs, etc. When you study this value chain, you can see that at each point you have security threats. It could be at the device itself, but using a hardware side channel attack, for example, or firmware dumping, etc. Then you have on the local networks some device spoofing. Typically, if you are using trusted protocols, then you could be sensitive to device spoofing and spying. Then you have also the network provider backend that could be spied and potentially spoofed also. And you have the IoT platform that could be covered, and finally you have your final application that needs to be protected in order to be secured against spoofing and spying. Just a short example regarding the network provider. We often think that network provider is protected, but we need to keep in mind that these last 3 years, we have seen some cyber attack on network provider that shows that even here, all data needs to be protected. I'm thinking here about Belgium cyber attack that shows lots of private data going in the outwards by hackers. So here in this presentation, we will mainly focus on 3 main components: the edge network, the network provider, and the IoT platform. And we will see how we can try to protect on the threats on those 3 main components. So just as a quick example, here I use a search engine which is named Shodan. Shodan was well known because it's the search engine that was used in order to show that there was many cameras connected out there without any authentication or access control, and that you can use in order to spy people. By using this search engine and making a very simple search of the MQTT protocol, I found quite a lot of fully open backends. 74,000 to be exact. And in those backends, I found many types of data, such as GPS position, but also some temperatures. But I also found many actuators. So here, this attack shows that we need to be protected against this kind of threats, especially when we are using, let's say, queue messaging protocols such as MQTT, MQP, etc. Okay, so just to continue regarding the complexity with the IoT, especially regarding cybersecurity, The fact is that we see out there many different protocols, either from the network or the applicative layer. And therefore, it is very difficult to think about security as a whole and build end-to-end secure and security by design systems. The second point is that even in the industrial world, or as we will see in the energy sector, lots of the protocols and the hardware come from the mass market. Indeed, one of the main advantages in the IoT is that we can use low-cost devices and therefore gather lots of data from different points of systems. But the counterpart of this is that we use low-cost devices and therefore that are not built natively for systems that need high security, that have high security requirements. And finally, the last main point is that there is a lot of very different use cases now. We can think about the Industry 4.0, the connected transportation, the smart city, and all those use cases have very different requirements. And therefore, this heterogeneity of use cases made it very difficult to have security layers that fit all the use cases. So what is the end-to-end security paradigm? The idea of end-to-end security is to build what already exists in the IT systems with, for example, SSL TLS over HTTP, is to be able to secure the data from the device to the final application, whatever third party the data is going through. So the idea is to be able to build this kind of VPN, but to be compatible with the lower constraints of the IoT world. Okay, so in order to do that, we can think about some solutions that exist. Indeed, there is some work. I just talked about TLS, which is quite perfect in legacy IoT, and on devices that don't have high performance, battery constraints, and bandwidth also. But there was also some work, especially in IETF, with the ephemeral element over closet, which is using a security protocol called OSCORE, which is allowing to build some security layer and key exchange mechanisms over constrained network and also targeting constrained devices. The main issue here is that it's relying on the co-op protocol, which is an applicative protocol. Another alternative is static context error compression and running TLS on top of that, which is allowing to use constraint protocols such as LoRaWAN, for example, in order to connect devices. This is a very interesting technology, but once again, it's not allowing to go through third-party servers using different technology in keeping the data encrypted. And that's the point. In the IoT value chain, we see that we can have very different protocols with very different constraints. Just for example, at the device side, the device could communicate using DLE, using LoRaWAN, using Sigfox, all those kinds of networks. And then on the IoT platform side, you can have message queue protocols such as MQTT, IMQP. You can have more standard protocols such as HTTP, etc. So we can see that there is lots of difference, and the protocol we have seen just before allows to implement security, but in a hop by hop manner. It means that at some point you have data that are decrypted in some parts of your system, and parts that you most of the time don't handle yourself because you have third party that, for example, are managing your network or your platform, etc. So, what to do to build the security on top of that? The idea we have worked, we propose is to build a kind of VPN, as I told before, between the devices and the final application. And the idea is to ensure that we apply the need-to-know principle. The need-to-know principle is the fact that only the people who are allowed to and need to can see your data and understand it and analyze it. And here the idea is to build a kind of tunnel in order to encrypt the data from the devices to the final application and be able to authenticate it. Because one of the other challenge in the IoT is how to enroll and to authenticate a mass of devices. So this is an overview of the end-to-end security. So on the left, you have the logic of hop by hop secured system, where you have devices that are communicating through LoRaWAN standards, and you have security between the device and the LoRaWAN network, and between the LoRaWAN network and the IoT platform, which is called ThingWorx here. But into the LoRaWAN network, the data are fully decrypted and authenticated. The idea of this, the end-to-end secured system, is that you will set up security between the device up to the final application, to the final IoT application, by building this kind of VPN compatible with standards, with networks such as LoRaWAN or Sigfox. Just to give you some insights, using Sigfox, you are very constrained in term of bandwidth because you are limited to 12 bytes in the uploads. So let's try it. Let's take a practical case about water management. Here we talk about a project which is called Brun IoT project, which was focusing on enabling, let's say, dynamic scenarios within the IoT in order to set up automatic reaction in heterogeneous IoT systems related to cyber physical systems. And here we will mainly focus on a water management use case. Here you can see a map of water distribution systems in Spain that is using different parts. We have all what is about the storage of the water. Then you have the cleaning and treatment area, and then you have all the distribution parts in the city. One of the challenge in this use case was to be able to have in area where you don't have energy access, to deploy meters in order to measure the pressure into the pipes,
and be able to check that there is no risks that that pipe break, especially in the water dam, uh, which is a quite critical area. Then, in this use case, we have worked with a company which is called Idraw. Idraw is providing some smart meter that allows to measure the water flow, the pressure, etc. of the water in a pipe. And they have quite interesting technology because they are not using any battery. They are using the water flow in order to to start the microcontroller and then send data to a backend uh, in order to get the water flow measures. This is using very low power technologies and a low power network, which is called LoRaWAN. And the main issue here is to ensure data security over up to the backend, because we need to have a high trust in the data. So that's why we have set up this kind of end-to-end security, ensuring the encryption of the data at the device up to the final application. Because between the device and the final application, we are using for cost reason some public LoRaWAN network, which have some limitation, especially regarding the security, because decryption appears in this backend. Therefore, this end-to-end security layer allows to ensure a high trustability of data that came from the device. This allow indeed a hardened security, because this system is fully protected against attack on third party, the network provider here. It shows a very good results regarding the impact on energy consumption with very low consumption. Indeed, the security layer was fully compatible with strong requirement of those devices, and it have also quite low impact on devices bandwidth, because the security overhead was limited to 5 bytes. So just to conclude quite quickly on this practical case, the results we see it in three main categories. The first result was reducing the impact of security. Indeed, we see that often when we think about security, we think about we don't want security because it could have strong impact on the device's performance. This is especially true in the IoT world. And here we show that the security impact was around 0.25% of the full device lifetime. The second one is the bandwidth. This was fully compatible with very constrained devices. Then this practical case also shows that it is possible to increase trustability of data even in those very constrained environments, and it is also possible to apply this need-to-know best practice in order to build secured by design systems. And finally, all this also allows to reduce costs. Indeed, in highly secure environments, most of the time, the way to manage security is to deploy some private infrastructure in order to be sure to manage people that will have access to it and to manage it from the physical point of view. Here we show that we were able to use critical to have critical information that's going through some public infrastructure, but this fully and highly secured. And this also was compatible with very low power hardware components, and therefore allows to reduce costs also from the hardware point of view. So to conclude about end-to-end security on low power devices, we have seen here a way to protect systems, but when it comes to cybersecurity, we need to keep in mind that two main aspects need to be taken into consideration. The first one is cyber protection that we have talked here about, and the second one is cyber detection. And IoT, especially in the fields of constraint devices, bring lots of, let's say, challenges in order to be able to monitor this kind of critical IoT systems because of the big amount of data, and also on the fact that the infrastructure are most of the time fully decentralized. And here, clearly, one key technology and key concept is the artificial intelligence. Indeed, this will allow to build reliable cyber monitoring for IoT environments and IoT systems. So that's all for me. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. I think we are now just on time regarding the schedule.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this super exciting keynote. And I loved especially that it was also very technical. So very nice. So yeah, as always, let's go into the 5 minutes breakouts, and then afterwards come back. Just create the breakouts, make them a little bit bigger now. Okay, good. So see you in 5 minutes. And for all those still in the stream, not in the breakout, also think about questions. If you have questions, I'm sure that there's lots of interesting things that Paul Emmanuel can tell us in addition. Okay, yeah, so I hope you had very nice discussions. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I start as usual. So, where would you say are we standing on the path towards having full security? Are we over the 50%? So are we on a good path, or would you say there's much more effort that we need to have fully secure systems?
That's a very good question. I would answer that we are really at the beginning. Why? Because here we focus on this topic about the end-to-end security, but there is so many different area to take into account in order to have fully secured system that I would say that we are only at the beginning. And I think that the challenge is not really technical, but is perhaps more related to business aspects. Indeed, when all the security measures that could be set up will have impact on the business processes, will have impact on the way to manage systems, will have impact on the who own devices, etc. So my short answer will be we are at the early beginning, and the key success factor are not only technical but also businesses and operational.
Okay, I like the answer a lot. So thanks a lot for that. So Nicola, I think we have some questions coming.
Yes, I have one first question. What do you think about protecting data through a blockchain or a DAG?
That's a good point. We have investigated blockchain for some use case within Airbus, and it appears that it's quite interesting for to ensure the authenticity of data. But when it comes to constrained devices and confidentiality of data, there is still some technical issue regarding, let's say, legacy blockchain and DLT technologies.
Oh, okay. And there was another question very close to this one, but it didn't arrive when I asked the first one. So it's asking also about RFID or mobile fog that are cited as technological measures for IoT security. So in your opinion, again, what do you think of these?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, just as blockchain in the first question, here we are asking about RFID and mobile fog.
Yeah.
If you think these are potential solutions to protect part of the IoT.
I think regarding RFID, it's mainly related to the architecture, and does your architecture and your use case needs fits the constraints of the RFID technology. But I think this could be in some use case, for example, for asset management. It's a good technology that we use in some use case within Airbus. And regarding the mobile fog, once again, it's very different regarding depending on the use case and the architecture you have. Typically, in the water management use case, we don't have this fog aspect, so it doesn't it could not directly apply. But there is some aspects where you need pre-processing, etc., in which it's a good architecture to be considered.
Okay. Then I have a question on GDPR, right? So do you think GDPR should mandate the need-based use of data to have maximum impact on the IoT ecosystem stakeholders?
Yeah, there is some very interesting work that are ongoing at the ENISA side following the Cybersecurity Act. And in fact, IoT is one key point in the first, let's say, certification work that are ongoing. But I'm not that sure that GDPR would be the main driver for that. It's more the Cybersecurity Act, at least at the EU at the EU side, that will enable the increasing of security levels in the IoT ecosystem.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. A related question about what you just said. There is a Cybersecurity Act in EU?
Yeah. The Cybersecurity Act that that was voted last year now, and now we are in the implementation phase. And one of the first implementation of it is dealing with IoT and definition of certification processes for IoT devices.
Great. So another question on the cryptographic techniques. So the question is, which techniques for cryptography did you use at each layer for device, gateway, and cloud? And for example, LoRaWAN uses AES. So for your experiment, did you make any changes in the standard LoRaWAN network and application server to incorporate these techniques?
We didn't make any changes because the idea was to be able to show that we can implement security on the top of existing systems independently from the security layer they already have. Therefore, we didn't make any changes for that. And we are using as a cryptographic algorithms for this encryption layer also AES for the encryption, and we are using the CCM mode for the authentication part. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
One.
Maybe as last question to get a little bit more shallow again. How do you advocate for investing into security at Airbus? Do you have a need for doing that, or is it? I would expect that probably at Airbus it's simpler to do. But in general, when you talk to customers or when you hear about talking to customers, you said already it's difficult. It's a societal problem to establish this high security standards. What are your arguments?
Let's say that it's a big issue we have when we are talking with customer because most of the time customers are not that aware about cybersecurity when it comes to IoT. Mm-hmm. Why? Because most of the IoT systems we have seen, at least for now, mm-hmm. are built from the prototype point of view. So at the prototype stage, customers don't see the need to implement security and to implement high-grade security measures. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that what we see also in IoT is that customers are most of the time going directly from the prototype to the production systems mm-hmm. when the prototype show good results. So the argument we have is that in order to allow these final systems that are secured by design and and take into account security requirements, they need also to think about security even at the prototype stage, because it will be much more costly for them to take it into account only when it will come to production.
Okay. All right. There's another question coming in, if we want to accept it. If not.
Yeah, let me read it. I think we have one more, right?
Okay, yeah, let's do this one more question. Yeah.
Fine.
Well, I will read it just like this. Did you consider in your attack model the possibility that an attacker could compromise the device and would be sending corrupted data to the backend? Is the private key stored in some trusted module?
That's a very good question, and as I said at the beginning of the presentation, we focused here on the end-to-end security aspects. But indeed, the device needs to be protected against tampering and firmware dumping, for example, or memory dumping. And for that, we most of the time, indeed, at least consider the use of what we call fingerprinting and secure elements on the devices. But it really depends on the use cases, if the device is deployed in a secure area or not. So I hope it answered the question.
Okay, then thank you very much. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was great. And yeah, so this was the last technical keynote for today. Sorry again for the late start that we had, but now the streams are working. We don't have echo anymore, so I'm really happy about that the setup is working. Yeah, so at 6:30 we have a social event for those participating over the Zoom. As we are not in Strasbourg this year, but we still thought it would be interesting to get to know a little bit Strasbourg. We have multiple people, I think 3 of them, it's still a secret who is doing the tour, that will show us around. They are natives from Strasbourg, so they know very well what is happening there. And I'm sure you will get inspired to going there whenever it's possible again with the COVID-19. That said, tomorrow we'll start at 9 o'clock with the talk by Amazon Web Services about the working backwards process that Emmanuel Brun was already talking about. Please share the streams, Twitter, write about the event so that more people know about it, because I'm quite confident that tomorrow we can start at 9 and then it will be as we have scheduled it. Besides that, it was a great pleasure with each one of you. You asked wonderful questions, and I'm very happy that we decided to run the format and not to totally skip the summer school. So yeah, so this would be it for the technical part. And please come back at 6:30 for a very special Strasbourg city tour that will happen, as you will see. So it's very exciting also to me. Okay, then see you later. And yeah, I'll write you also an email later tonight. We'll also make a report of the day. As said, please share it. And see you in, yeah, well, it's 45 minutes. Okay, till later.
See you. Thank you.